The purpose of Silence the Podcast is to inspire low-income students and students of color to apply to Yale and other prestigious institutions by sharing my experiences. The purpose of Silence the Podcast is not to defame, bash, slander, attack, or drive hate or harassment towards anyone mentioned on the episode, including but not limited to Yale University, Yale College, other entities related to Yale, Yale staff, or Yale administration. The opinions, beliefs, and perspectives of Aisha Selena or any guest on Silence the Podcast do not reflect the opinions, beliefs, and perspectives of Yale University, Yale College, Yale administration, or other entities related to Yale. Buckle in. Silence is complacency.
Welcome to Silence the Podcast with Daisha Selena.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Silence the Podcast. This is episode 8, and I'm going to be discussing my experience with depression and anxiety and how it is reflected in my college experience and how it impacts the things I go through and the experiences that I share on Silence. Episode 7 did really well. If you haven't got a chance to check that out, I 100% recommend. It was a great episode. It got a lot of good feedback. A lot of people tuned in. I always have to give a disclaimer because in this world, in today's society, people will always try to put words in your mouth that you literally never even said. So here it goes. I'm not an expert at all in psychology, psychopathology, mental illness, mental disorders, nothing at all. But I am speaking from a lot of personal experience, years of personal experience, and extensive studying and research on these topics. I'm also a psychology minor, literally learning about the different disorders in one of my classes right now. And it's been very informative. A lot of the times it feels like I'm reading about myself. Saying all that to say, I'm not an expert in no way, shape, or form, but I do have a lot of experience and knowledge on these topics. And another thing, I don't feel like a trigger warning is needed because I won't be going into very gruesome detail at all. But if you have experienced depression and anxiety and this topic is like a very touchy subject for you, just take care of yourself before you listen to this episode, while you're listening to this episode, and after you finish listening to this episode. My experience with anxiety and depression started around when I was like 9-10 years old, and 2018 was quite literally the worst year of my entire life because it was just a lot going on. Life was crazy, life was hectic, and that's when I really started to have to grow up really, really fast. The cause at that time was I was going through 4 different life stressors. That's really what made the depression and anxiety feel like very severe and very strong at that point in time. My experience with depression has never really went away. It just comes in waves. And then my experience with anxiety is more prominent, and I deal with it in my everyday life, especially the social anxiety part of it and just general worrying about the future. I'm someone that always likes to plan for the next step, make sure that I'm doing things that my future self will be able to look back on and be like, yeah, like you set us up for success. When I feel like I'm not in control of the situation, when I feel like I feel a little bit unstable, or there's a lot of things up in the air, or I really harp on not knowing like what's gonna happen next, like that's where the anxiety comes from. However, the main cause, one of those 4 stressors that I told you about previously, was the school that I attended from elementary school all the way up into middle school. So that's from grades 3 to grades 8. 5 years of torment and turmoil and psychological, a lot was going on psychologically. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to refer to it as Apples Free, and I'm going to use the abbreviation AF. Take with that information what you will. Apples Free was a smaller charter school, a part of a larger network. So for example, it was at Apples Free East New York, Apples Free Brownsville. Those are different parts of New York City. Apples Free has a few schools in like different states, even like in the tri-state area. Remember that because that's going to come into play later. And before I get into all the psychological distress that this school has put me through, I just want to make it very clear. Education wise, this school was fantastic. It taught me how to be a good student. It taught me good like habits for doing homework and planning my time and managing my time with my extra, curriculums that I did outside of school. It taught me how to analyze, how to close read, but at what cost? That cost was my mental health. The way that the school system operated was they really preyed upon the overachieving students, and they kind of disregarded and discarded of the underachieving students. Now, I'm going to define overachieving students as those students that are willing to do whatever it takes to get those good grades, to get the highest grades possible. They're going to the office hours, they're doing the studying, they're staying hours after school and doing extra credit, extra assignments to, like I said, get the highest grades possible and maximize their success. The underachievers are the kids that, school is not really for them, which I'm not knocking that at all. School is hard. School is stressful. And I can 100% understand why school is not for everyone. So, if you knew from a young age that school is not for you, then you're not going to be one of those kids that do anything to get that 100 or do whatever it takes to get that A plus. And then, there's some people that fall in the middle where they kind of like school, but they just struggle a little bit and they need a little bit more extra support. And, they might be okay with a C plus or a B plus, and like they're not striving for like, the highest grades of all time. I consider myself to be in the overachiever group, and I'm pretty sure that anyone that went to school with me ever can attest to that. So I can mainly speak for the overachieving group. But if you went to the school and if you were a part of the school system, then I'm pretty sure you can figure out which group you would be in. For the overachieving group, they put an immense amount of pressure on us, and it was to the point where it was just excessive. Everything I say about the school, they did it to an excessive extent. I just want to put that out there right now. Like, a lot of the things I'm going to speak about and bring up, you might be listening like bro, this is what a good school should do to, train the kids, condition them, teach them how to be good students. But no, and I'm not going to be able to really translate the extent that the school took literally everything through this video, because I've gone through years of therapy, years of mental health counseling, years of like trying to block that whole era out of my life. So I don't really remember a lot of what I went through, with those feelings still are within me, if that makes sense. So for example, for the overachiever group, they would come to us before class and they would tell us, I'm gonna call on you at some point during our class today. Make sure you have the right answer. Like, I already know you did all the homework. Like, I already know you got it, you're good. Like, make sure you have the right answer. The class is counting on you to, have the right answer. And I'm gonna lean on you to propel class today. And then, given that, if they were calling us and we didn't have the right answer or we didn't say what they were looking for, we would kind of be looked down upon, like, I was relying on you. And mind you, like I said, this was elementary and middle school. Most of this was elementary school, and I'm going to get into like how that trickled then into middle school a little bit later. But this is elementary school. So what, we're 6, 7, 8, I think, and y'all putting this much pressure on us to basically be your all-star students all the time and lead the class. And if you make a mistake, then we're looked down upon, and then you're making us feel like shit at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. We were constantly told that other students look up to us and we're role models, and the other kids are always watching us. So we really have to watch what we do. We have to watch what we say. We have to watch how we act. We have to watch how we interact with the teachers in front of the other kids, because everyone is constantly looking up to us. We're the leaders, blah, blah, blah. Once again, that is a lot of pressure to put on a group of kids to be your superstar, be your all-star students that can't make a mistake and can't develop and can't learn from themselves, because we always have to think about what other students are learning and watching us do. On top of that, they oftentimes put all of the overachievers in competition with each other. So there was a small group of overachievers in my school at the time. It was probably about anywhere between 5 to 8 of us, maybe 10 if I'm pushing it. But they would constantly put it in our heads that you have to be better than the next person. This girl got a 95 and you only have a 94. Like, you have to do better. You have to, get it together. Our names will constantly be on the board after every test, after every exam. We can see like the leaderboard and who got the highest score for this and who dropped down. Like, it was constant comparison with the other very smart people in the grade. And then it very quickly turned into, I have to do my best to be better than everyone else. And if I'm not better than everyone else, then my best is not enough. That was a constant theme that I learned across all 5 years of my education with the school. And then, I'm not even gonna lie, in my opinion, and from like what I observed, they really disregarded the non-achievers, because the teachers were very smart and the administration was very smart. They were keeping their eyes peeled, they were keeping their eyes open, and they really wanted to see and really flesh out who were the kids that they could rely on to, get to the Ivy Leagues and get to the top schools, and who were the kids that were going to, like I said, do whatever it takes to get the highest grades possible to help their school ratings and to help their school rankings. Because like I said, this was one school, a part of a larger network under the same name of Apples Free. So every school was ranked and placed on like a scale of which school was number 1, which school was number 5, number 10, things like that. And they made that very apparent to us. So a part of our goal was always to make sure that our school stayed within the top 3, if not number 1. And if you weren't an overachiever, or if they deemed you as someone, that isn't like, school isn't really for them, so they just didn't really try on you. Yes, they still gave you support. They still pulled you out of the room and like to small groups to make sure that you're understanding the material if you were learning at a slower pace than everyone else. But in terms of resources, in terms of really pouring into you and encouraging you that you can be good at school and you can do your best and try your best in school, it's pretty much like, yeah, like, we're gonna help you so that it's not obvious of who we like and who we favor the most, but we already know you're not gonna go that far in life, so we're just gonna not pay that much attention to you. that was very clear to me from a young age, and it even became more clearer as we got older. Because one thing about the school, once again, for like the third, fourth time, this school system was a system, it was a network. So you start off in the elementary school, and then you go to Apples Free Junior High School, fifth through eighth grade, and then you go to Apples Free High School. So it's like the overachievers and the underachievers were fleshed out from very, very, very young, from elementary school. And because we all stayed in this network and they made it very hard to leave this network, I came to the school in third grade and I left in eighth grade. But some of these kids started with this network in kindergarten and they stayed in the network up until high school. They knew who was what and who fell into what category from then. And then I came into the mix and then I was placed into a category. So it was like we know each other and we are going to continue going to school with each other for years and years and years. So it's not really a lot you can do to break out of whatever category you were placed into. On top of that, another very important topic I want to speak about is the reward and punishment system. Now, I'm not going to say the specific terms or the specific names of what they used to call it because it's going to make it very obvious where I'm talking about and what school I'm talking about. And I don't got time for nobody to be trying to sue me or nothing like that. I'll get into that later. In terms of punishments, this school was overly excessive with the punishments. I'm going to reiterate what I said before. Every school needs punishment to an extent. Every school system needs rewards to an extent because you have to condition the students and train the students to know right from wrong. You have to attach incentives to doing good things and punishments to doing bad things so kids know what they need to be doing, what they should be doing, and what they can and should not be doing. This school took it to a whole other extent. They had a very, very strict uniform policy. Your shirt had to be tucked in at all times. If your shirt was not tucked in, you would think they would say, oh, honey, like your shirt is not tucked in, like fix it. No, they would immediately give you a punishment if your shirt was not tucked in. Once again, with the uniform, if you weren't wearing 100% all black shoes, so if your shoes had polka dots, if they had a speck of any other color, you're getting a punishment. They were also very, very particular and strict on calling out or talking out of turn in class. So if one person is sharing an answer, when they're done sharing whatever they have to say, the next person, responds or answers a question as well, they're going to get a punishment. Now, I completely understand, not wanting this to turn into a free-for-all, not wanting everyone to just be shouting things out, but it was kind of strange the approach they were taking on it because it very much gave like, you don't speak unless I tell you to. You don't speak unless I give you the authority to open your mouth. You are not free to share your thoughts, share your ideas, even if it's in a civilized, like strategic manner. Like, someone is speaking, I'm going to wait to share my thoughts until they're done. Like, no, if you even let out a peep and they didn't specifically call on you, you were getting a punishment. Another thing, our breaks were extremely short. Our breaks would sometimes be on, like, I'm talking about like winter break, spring break, fall break. It would be less than a week sometimes. The most it was like a week and a day, a week and 2 days. And I know other schools have way longer breaks than that. But even on these breaks, they would give us severe packets to do over the break. And I'm talking about thick ass packets for each class that we were in. A thick packet for science, a thick packet for math, a thick packet for English, a thick packet for social studies. And when I say thick packet, once again, people might get in the comments or people might say, oh, well, it's always good to keep your brain going and keep practicing the skills over breaks, you don't forget. First of all, that's bullshit because as I left the school network and I went to other schools and I realized like, okay, I don't need to be doing break homework over, a break in order to not forget what I'm learning. I trust and believe me, I'm like, you don't just forget things like that. If you are a student that's coming to school actively, you're showing up and you're doing the work, a little week break to spend with your family and friends and actually enjoy life and have fun and forget about your identity as a student for 1.5 seconds is not going to be altered if you have 500 pages of a break packet to do versus no break homework. I promise you. If you were in the bathroom for too long, you got a punishment. If you even disagreed, even if it was respectful, if you even disagreed with the teacher or expressed any questioning of a teacher on literally anything at all, it was seen as disrespect and you got a punishment. The goal of that school was to train students to be a very particular, very strategic, very certain type of person, very certain way. And if you didn't fit into that mold, you were constantly getting punishments. And these punishments weren't just a one-time thing. Like, no, the punishments accumulated into more punishments and then into detention and into in-school suspension. Kids were constantly getting suspended for the littlest of things. And that's because these little itty bitty punishments would amount into in-school suspension where they would literally put you in in a room, you would sit in like a cubicle box, stare at the wall for the entire school day, and just be writing and reflecting on what you did wrong. Like, come on now. And a lot of the times the school try to play the psychological mind game of, oh, we're training you guys for the real world. Like when you go to a job and when you go to college, they're gonna want you to be X, Y, and Z. So we want you guys to be like that now, so that you don't have to learn it in the future. Another thing the school did made us sit with our hands folded the entire day. If your hands were not folded, you were getting a punishment. And as I go through, this list of everything I just told you guys, I'm not sure what workplace would fire me or dock my pay if my shirt is not tucked in. Obviously, I would look a little bit more professional, whatever that means, if my shirt was tucked in. What if I'm not wearing a shirt that you can tuck in? My workplace is not going to fire me or take money out of my paycheck because I don't look how they want me to look. Obviously, if I'm walking in there with pom pom shorts, that's a different story. But punishments for not getting my shirt tucked in, like, come on now. On top of that, the whole calling out thing, and what real world job or college, because I can tell you, I can attest to be like, as I'm a college student at Yale right now, like no one wants you to raise your hand. Like nobody's waiting to be called on. Like, no, we're having a regular flowing discussion like regular like human beings. In the workplace, they're not taking money out of my paycheck if I don't wear all black shoes. In the workplace, when you take a break or when you take a vacation from work, you take a vacation from work. Nobody's giving you 500 assignments to do over your break that you're not getting paid for. So it's just like a lot of that, they tried to use a lot of reverse psychology on us to make it seem like they were preparing us for the real world, but all they were actually doing was training us to be miserable and depressed. They took away a lot of the aspects of being a student and having fun and being a kid and turned it into this military prison style education system. And that really did hurt my mental health severely. And after a while, like I started to associate my worth with my grades. If I wasn't getting a 97 or better on an assignment, I was having a full-blown meltdown. I was having panic attacks constantly. My anxiety was through the roof. I would hate waking up to go to school. And that's the thing with me. I love to learn, but if something is not fun for me, like I'm not going to want to do it. And that's why I've had this constant like uphill battle with school and the school system, because as you guys know, I did not go to a good high school. And as you guys know, I really love Yale and I'm enjoying my time at Yale, but there's a lot of things that Yale like does that I'm not really a fan of. So I've always known that I love to learn, but when it comes to the type of school I'm in and how we're conditioned to do whatever we say, and we can't have autonomy and we can't like be our individual selves and show any type of personality because there's always a punishment attached to it, it starts to become like, well, damn, I don't want to do this school shit either. That's why I will never knock any of the underachieving or non-achieving students or anybody that drops out of school or decided to not go to college, because I understand 100% the stress and the turmoil that these school systems put on us. It gets to be a lot. It gets to be a lot, and it takes a strong toll on your mental health. And I'm going to share like a quick little story because it just came up when I was talking to my dad. I live in New York City, obviously. One morning it was a snowstorm. My dad's car was snowed in. It took him about an hour to shovel, like to be able to get his car to get out of the parking spot. Because every time he would try to drive over the snow, his tires would spin. After that, his car was messed up. Like a lot happened. My father drops me off to school an hour late due to valid reasons. Like his car was literally stuck and there was no other way for me to get to school. I'm 8, 9 years old. Like my parents are driving me to school at this point. And then I go to the attendance office or whatever. And then I marked myself in because obviously I couldn't do it when everyone else did because I came late. And once I saw them mark like that L on my attendance, I literally had my very first panic attack of my life. I started hyperventilating. I started crying. I had a headache. I was nauseous. Like my hearing went out. And you might be wondering, like, obviously it wasn't that serious. Like being late, like that's not the end of the world. But I already knew a punishment was going to be attached with me being late. I was going to lose my recess time because I was late. One, this was something out of my control. And 2, I had a perfect attendance. That's another thing they instilled. Perfect attendance, perfect attendance, perfect attendance. So what did I do? I became a perfect attendance driving student. I wasn't taking off school for my health. If I was sick, I was not staying home. If I just wasn't feeling it, I wasn't staying home. If it was snowstorm outside, hailstorm, rainstorm, I was not staying home. I was doing things that are not even expected of you to do in the real world. You think if I stay home during a blizzard, my workplace is going to fire me? Like, in what world? That's what I'm saying. Like, they just had us doing dumb shit that is not even expected of us in the real world. And they wrote it off as, oh, we're just preparing you guys for your future. Like, no. And then, like I said, my worth started to become associated to my grades and to my rewards and how I was perceived by my teachers and how I was perceived at school. And if I felt like any of that was starting to dip, then I started to feel like I'm worthless and I don't deserve to be here. That's where the depression comes in. And I want to just make this very clear. My parents did not reinforce the toxic cycle and toxic relationship with education. Like, they truly did not. When I was going home, I wasn't getting beat if I got a 98 versus 100, or I wasn't even getting beat if I got a 90, or I wasn't getting yelled at. I wasn't getting my phone taken, like nothing of that sort. My parents always instilled in me, all we want you to do is do your best. And if you do your best and you get a 90 or you get an 89 or a 92, then we're not going to be mad at you. We're not going to be upset with you because you tried your best. However, I'm hearing that at home, where I'm not even at home most of the time because I'm in school most of the day. And then at school, I'm hearing your best is not enough. If you're not better than the next person, then your best is not enough and you need to do better. If we're not ranking higher than the other schools, then you guys are not doing it enough. You guys, we need to overwork you. We need you to do more. We need to push you more, because if we are not better than the next school, then we are not good enough. So it was two conflicting, modes of lessons that I'm learning and information that I'm intaking. And obviously, I'm going to go with what my school is telling me to do, because that's where my grades are. That's where my rewards are. That's where my punishments are. I decided that I needed to leave that school system for the sake of my mental health in 8th grade. And a lot like just goes into that whole process, because like I said, this school is a network. You start in elementary school, you actually start in kindergarten, then elementary school, middle school, high school. They expect you to go all the way through with them because they think like they're just oh so great. No, I personally knew by 6th grade I wanted to leave the school, but my mom was one of those, you're getting a good education, like I don't just want to send you to any random school. I had to double down on her for 8th grade and say, listen, I notice I'm getting a good education. I know you think this is the good school, but if I continue here, my mental health is going to deplete. Like, my mental health is going to go down the drain. So if you love me, then you're going to have to let me leave, because I can tell you right now, I'm not going down a good path. And she was like, okay, like find out, research a high school and we'll go through the process. Apple's free gave me absolutely no help or no encouragement of me trying to find a high school that was right for me. I had to do the process all on my own. The only support and help that they offered was if I wanted to stay within their network. Anything else, if I wanted to go anywhere else, they didn't care. They didn't offer support. They didn't ask any questions, nothing. And a lot of things people were saying to me when I wanted to leave was, oh, like, you're making a mistake. If you leave, you won't be successful. If you leave, you won't be able to go to the Ivies that you want to go to, or you won't be able to achieve the heights that you want to go to, or maximize your potential. Like, we're the best for you. I knew deep down in my heart, this is not the best. This is not the best at all. So I went where I thought was better. And in some ways, for my mental health, the school was better to an extent for a certain period of time. But education wise, like, it wasn't as good as Apple's free. And I'm not gonna knock them. I'm not gonna lie about that. But at the end of the day, my mental health comes first, because no matter what school is attached to my name, I'm going to be successful in this life because of the type of person I am. The dedication, the drive, the passion, the effort, the grit, the perseverance, the determination, all of those factors that culminate who Daisha Selena is, who I am as a person, are what make me and are what's going to influence my success. Not me just being a Yale student, or not me being the Apple's free student. Obviously, Yale gonna be, good for my name and good to, open a lot of doors for me. But at the end of the day, what I do at Yale is what I do at Yale. Whatever opportunities, whatever initiatives, whatever programs, whatever businesses I start while I'm here, that was me. Yes, I have the Yale name, but at the end of the day, I'm still the captain of the ship, and I gotta make it shake regardless. Obviously, my time at Apple's free, it was kind of the start and the beginning of the depression and anxiety, but it only, it did get worse over the years, because I started to experience a lot more things, a lot more stressors, and two of the main ones was my relationships, romantically and platonically. I've been in a lot of like very questionable relationships that I'm not even proud of, and I still regret to this day even involving myself with these people, because they really did put a strain on my self-confidence and my relationship with myself and my outlook on the world. The verbal abuse, the psychological manipulation, the cheating, the lying, the public embarrassment, like, it goes on. And I personally believe I started the whole dating thing too young, and I should have waited till a little bit older. Obviously, now, as I'm about to be 19 years old in less than a month, 310, mark it on your calendar, thank you. But now I look back and realize, like, yeah, I needed to chill. And then also the platonic relationship. At the end of the day, like, that's why I'm so meticulous about who I keep around me, because I know what it does to me when I have people around me and people close to me that I truly love and care about and would do anything for and would give the world to if I could. And then when all of that stops abruptly, or when all of that stops because I feel like I was wrong, or when all of that ends because it was just this big chaotic situation that led to extremely drastic fallout, I know the effects that it has on me. I know the depression that it sends me to a spiral of, because when something happens, I tend to ruminate on it, which means you constantly think about it over and over and over and over and over again. And me personally, like, I'm just not interested in putting myself through that. I'm not interested in trying to be friends with the whole world and then falling out with the whole world and doing the whole makeup breakup thing with the entire world. Like, no, I need to have great people around me that I know I genuinely like as people. So even if they do make a mistake, or even if we do get into it, I know that I still love them for them, and I'm willing to work with them and be by their side as they grow, and vice versa. And then all in all, how I have coped with the depression and the anxiety is, I think gratitude and compassion has been the main thing, because I used to be one of those people where I used to get so upset if people didn't act the way that I expected them to act. Like, for example, if I hold the door for someone and then they don't say thank you, I used to really be offended. My ego used to really be bruised, because I'm like, I'm doing you a favor and you can even open your mouth to say thank you. Or if I'm ordering at a restaurant and the person is like just very rude and disrespectful and nasty, I used to think like, what the fuck is your problem? Or, things like that. And then I really had to take a step back and take myself out of the equation and, realize that life is hard, bro. Like, life is hard and you never know what people are going through. So yes, maybe that person didn't say thank you to me holding the door for them because they're arguing with their spouse, or they're going through a breakup, or their mom just died. Or maybe the cashier that was being rude to me when I was ordering my food, maybe they were being rude because their car just broke down, or they just told that they're getting fired, or they're struggling financially. Like, you just never know what people are going through. And a lot of the time, like, when someone is acting a certain way towards you that you feel like you don't deserve, 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with you. So I would 100% recommend, like, if you're going through depression, anxiety, or if that's what, like, something you're experiencing, I would 100% just recommend being more compassionate to people and just being more grateful for life. Like, I really had to instill into myself that even being able to wake up today is a blessing. Even being able to take a breath of fresh air is a blessing. Being able to use my legs to walk around, a blessing. Being that I have all my limbs, a blessing. Being that I'm confident, I think I'm beautiful, and I have such a bright future ahead of me, a blessing. My determination and my perseverance and my passion and my drive for everything I'm doing in my life, whether it's academic, whether it's my businesses, my nonprofit, the Voices Be Here Incorporated, or Silence, like, that's a blessing. And that just takes a lot of the anger and the stress off of you for being upset about how you think the world should be and it's not. And just being able to wake up and be like, I'm here today, I'm breathing, I have a lot going for myself, like, and being grateful for that. Now I want to transition into how all of this relates to Yale and Silence, because I'm not gonna lie, I really appreciate Yale for not living up to the whole elitist name and having all of these things and systems in place that can constantly compare us to our peers and constantly make us feel like if we're not the best, then we're not good enough, or we're not better than the next person, then we're not good enough. Because that's a stigma that's attached to a lot of Ivies, and to some Ivies is granted, and to some Ivies, like, it's right to attach that to them because they do stuff like that. But at Yale, they don't do class rings, and they don't do dean's list and honor roll and all this, and like put everybody's names like compares to each other and create all of those different stereotypes and categories. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that people on honor roll should not get recognition, because I also experienced that in high school. In my 12th grade year, the administration of that school started to pull back on honor roll, and they took out all the categories and stuff like that. And they was claiming that students were coming up to them and saying, seeing myself now on honor roll is making me depressed and anxious, and I would really appreciate if we just abolish the whole honor roll system. I don't agree with that at all. I honestly feel like if you don't see your name on honor roll and seeing other people being successful makes you upset to the point where now you're depressed and like you hate yourself, I think that's a personal thing that you have to work on, because other people's successes shouldn't make you insecure. But at Yale, it's a different playing field. Like, we all on a dean's list, we're all trying our best, we're all getting amazing grades, we're all incredibly smart. I would assume that it will only be a small number of people like not on dean's list. Now, I'm pretty sure they have like a list of rankings and stuff for their own personal records, but that's not something that's a part of the campus culture, and I really appreciate that, like, truly. And honestly, I can attest, like, it's not even needed. The classes I'm in, like, my classmates are so educated, like, it just makes me fall back in love with learning, because a lot of years, like, I haven't, but it makes me feel so blessed and grateful to be in an environment where everyone is as engaged and focused and happy to be here and thankful to be here as I am, because the level of discussions that we have and the topics we talk about and the ideas that these people come up with blow me away literally every single day. So I'm just really grateful for Yale for allowing me to navigate away from that. If you're not the best and you're not good enough, or you have to get 100, or you have to get 95s and aboves on every like assignment, because I don't want to go through that anymore. Like, I don't want my worth constantly being attached to a number anymore, and Yale doesn't do that to me. And then I want to touch on the second to last point, because I talk about the importance of community a lot, it's not like I'm just begging for friends. And trust me when I say, at Yale, you can literally meet someone at a frat party and take a picture with a group of girls, and then the next day y'all are the best of friends, y'all sisters, y'all cousins, y'all jacking, like y'all know each other for years. That's not me. I am not the party person at all. So that's first of all. And second of all, I value deep and intimate relationships. So I'm not gonna build a friendship off of partying and drinking with you at a frat party every weekend. Like, it gotta be some substance to it. And the only reason why I bring up and stress the importance of having a good community at Yale and having people around you where you really love and trust and care about is because even though there's a lot of resources in place, and even though Yale provides mental health counseling and insurance and a ton of other different support systems for students, we have academic advisors, deans, head of colleges, the professors are wonderful as to what I've seen. At the end of the day, like, this is Yale. Yale has formulated this campus to be compiled of a very specific type of student. Like, we're all cutthroat. We all want the best for ourselves. We all want the highest of the highest grades. And that could get stressful. Like, that can get depressing and it can get overwhelming a lot of the times. So having people in your corner where you know you could call on if you need them and vent to if you need them and vice versa, that's very important, because I know how not having a community when I've been going through depressive episodes or when I've been the most anxious in my life had very adverse effects on me when you feel like you're alone and when you don't have anyone. A place like Yale, I'm not gonna lie, like, you fake need at least one other person, because if not, it could get very dangerous, very dark, very scary very quickly. And then lastly, I just want to close off by addressing how my experience with anxiety and depression shapes how I view my experience at Yale and like the things I go through. Because I know the last episode, second semester at Yale part 1 episode, I talked a lot about how I was struggling, how I wasn't really doing, I didn't feel like I was doing the best in my classes, and I had essays and assignments and exams coming up where I feel like I didn't even know what was going on, and I was concerned about tanking my GPA this semester. And I'm not gonna lie, like, the depression and anxiety has a lot to do with how I feel about education and my outlook on school. I'm never gonna get on here and saying like, oh, got you guys, like I was exaggerating on purpose, or I was like dragging it on purpose, or I was overinflating the story on purpose. Like, I will say, experiencing depression and anxiety and having that be so tied and so closely related to education and academics, and feeling like for the 100th time needing to be better than the next person, and if not, then I'm not good enough. Anytime I start to feel like I don't have control over my grades, or I'm not doing as good as I should, or my GPA might be low, or I'm not going to get the highest grade possible, that starts to scare me a lot of the times. And that's where the stress and the frustration and the anxiety comes in. If you were in my situation, you might not have a lot of those negative like emotions and feelings attached to academics. You would probably have a much better time here. But for me, like, I don't have that, because school has been so closely tied to my worth as a person and my character and just how people like me and interact with me for so long. Like, it gets hard to break out of that a lot. But being here, I'm not gonna lie, it has helped a lot. But I'm still like, it's an uphill battle. It's still something I'm working toward constantly, day in and day out, to make sure that I can succeed at Yale but still keep my mental health in check. And for the record, this semester has been going much better since I last spoke to you guys in episode 7. It really just takes time. It's going to be an adjustment to detach my like self-worth with my academics and with my grades, you know, while still making sure I'm doing good in school and by still making sure my mental health is great. If you're listening to this and you're like, damn, like, I don't think I could trust her or trust what she says anymore about Yale, then that's on you. But whatever I say is still accurate, it's still valid. You can take it how you want it. Since I left Apple Free, I have been like still in contact with some people. Actually, one girl that also went to Apple Free is here at Yale with me right now. And we just had a conversation about 2 Sundays ago about our experience and about how Apple Free affected us. And we have very, very, very similar stories. Once again, I talk to a lot of people, and I know for a fact I'm not the only one that has had this detrimental experience with Apple Free in terms of mental health. So I've been told since COVID happened, they really pulled back on a lot of their restrictions and the policies and punishments, and they really like chilled out a little bit more. I guess they were trying to be considerate of how COVID impacted everyone. But at the end of the day, like, that's now. Like, what about the rest of us that went through when they were super hard ass about everything, and that went through their time of excessive control and authority and punishment, lack of freedom of expression and things like that? Like, what about us? And I'm not gonna lie, like, if I had the time and resources to take action against Apple Free, like, I 100% would, because I know and I have the evidence of the constant therapy sessions and mental health counseling and all of that I experienced due to the shit that they put me through. And I just gonna say right now, they better hope when I become an attorney, I won't have the time, because I'll have the resources, but I won't have the time to take action about the shit that they done and put us through, because it was a lot and we deserve justice. Like, at the end of the day, if you're an almond parent and you're listening to me, like, in my story and my experience with Apple's Free, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, like, they were just trying to do what's best for you guys and you guys needed punishment and things like that, once again, punishment is always good to an extent. If literally everything is attached to a punishment and you can't do anything and you can't make any type of mistake, small mistakes, not like we're in school fighting and punching each other and like running each other over with chairs and like just wreaking havoc. Like, no, at one point, this is one of the top schools in New York City. So we're doing the work and we're putting in the effort. But at the same time, like, let kids be kids. Let us make mistakes. Let us grow. Let us learn. Let us develop into the people that y'all claim y'all trying to set us up to be for the future. We can't do that if we're miserable and we're not having a good time. All in all, silence is complacency. And I'm speaking up about this because I know for me personally and for tons of people that I spoke to that have went through, once again, a girl from my high school went to Apples Free. We had the same experience with this damn school. And we're all three of us are from different Apples Frees at that. I don't know. It's a lot that goes into it. And that's why I'm here to share my story now. And hopefully other people can, relate to what I went through and be able to like vouch for me, like, yup, like that school was dead ass OD and it was dragging it. And a lot of us is stuff now because of it. But yes, thank you guys so much for, listening and watching this episode of Silence the Podcast. I really wanted to get this episode out before I continued because seeing what's going on in the world and seeing, how mental illness affects the people around me, like the students at Yale, my personal, people in my life. It's just really important for me that I acknowledge how those experiences affect and influence what my outlook and what my takes on my academic experience at Yale, and to just make it like very clear of where my experiences and where my thoughts and opinions are coming from based on what I went through. If you are someone is going through, or battling mental illness to any extent, whether it's mild, whether it's severe, whether it's crippling, please, please, please seek therapy, get help. Like, there's people out here that want to help you. My therapist is a Black woman, and that was something very important for me because I have been to therapists before where they weren't even from this country. They didn't know what I was talking about. A lot of times I had to explain basic, phenomenons and basic aspects of American life to them in order for them to even understand me 50% of the time. And having a Black woman and someone that looks like me and has similar experiences as me and upbringing as me and background as me was very important. I will put on the screen how I found my therapist. If we didn't have our, obviously, professional therapist client relationship, as someone I would look up to as my aunt or as a family member due to all the things that she's done for me throughout the time I was seeing her. I'll put where I get therapy from on the screen. No, this is not sponsored. This is not an ad. None of that, baby. I wish it was a sponsor because, once again, broke college student trying to figure her life out. Yeah, please seek help. Please get therapy. Nothing in this world is worth your life or worth your sanity. If you're engaging in something right now that's having adverse effects on your mental health, please cut it out. If you're seeing someone like romantically, platonically, whatever it is that's stressing you and draining you mentally, please get out. You are worth so much more than whatever is stressing you out. You are worth more than a grade. You are worth more than a boyfriend. You are worth more than a job. You are worth more than a friend. You are worth more than a car. You are worth more than anything in this world. So don't let other influences and other factors make you feel any less than, because I promise you're not. And it's very cliche to say the whole it gets better bullshit, but honestly, if you do the practices that I suggested in the beginning, because that's really what helped me. I'm not medicated. I'm someone that believes my body is a temple and it's going to function how it's going to function normally. So I'm not really a supporter of taking medications to fix my mental health problems. If you are, like, I'm not throwing shade to you, but that's just not something that I'm interested in doing. Practicing gratitude, being compassionate, knowing that at the end of the day, everyone is going through shit. So if someone is treating you bad, if someone's treating you poorly, I'm not saying excuse the behavior. I'm not saying let them off easy, let them off the hook, but just try to stop and think about what they might be going through for a second, because 9 times out of 10, the problem is way bigger than you. One last point I want to make, because I know some people might watch this and be like, girl, like, you're being way too open on the internet, like, you're sharing way too much, you're being way too vulnerable. Nothing that I ever share on silence, especially like my experience with depression and anxiety, can ever be used against me, because I'm the one telling you guys. I'm comfortable with sharing what I go through because I'm confident, I'm comfortable in my skin, and I know that all of these things and all these challenges and the shit that I go through is only one factor of me and who I am, because those other factors, those good factors that have literally got me into the doors that I've been in, with having my own businesses and with being a Yale student, that amounts to way more than any of my struggles. So you can't really use nothing I say on this podcast to weaponize or like throw it back in my face or use against me, because I'm not insecure and I'm not scared and I'm not shy about speaking on the real shit that I go through. That's the whole point of this podcast. Silence is complacency. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one.